You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since neither of us won the presidential fitness test. Now dads reliving the Disney movies we grew up on with our own kids. I'm JB Waggoner.
And I'm Eddie Ferguson. And on today's episode, we realized that we would have liked to visit from the Molinator as we review the Santa Claus 2. But before that, JB, how are you and the family doing?
Good. We are so excited. We just found out that we are having another girl. Girl is on the way in April. And just like I was telling you before we got started, when you asked me how do I feel being outnumbered, well, one, I already feel outnumbered with two babies, but also another girl in the mix. Well, if the next girl is anything like our current girl, it's not going to be that. I mean, it is tea parties and princess dresses, but princesses that wrestle and fight and push and pull and prod and all of the things like rough and tumble. I don't think that the purely pretty plastic princesses are in our fate at all.
When I like wrestle and roughhouse with the three kids, Ellie is the roughest. I mean, and she takes the cheapest shots. I mean, she's just like, we always joke, like, if any kid is going to kill us in our sleeps, it's her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what other people's homes are like when they have a lot of females in there, but I don't think this is really trending the stereotypical way for us. Now, I'm sure it'll probably be different once my daughter gets older. And
you should call Justin. Justin is our friend. Justin has 3 daughters. He would know.
I was thinking about this. I don't know a lot of people with an older son or like one son and multiple daughters. I'm trying to think of somebody in my life who lived that situation, and I don't know anybody.
I'd have to think about that. Yeah, I don't know.
So
have you guys done the thing yet? You know, like, I think the whole time Sarah was pregnant with Asa, we would just kind of do the whole, like, you know, she'd have one kid, I'd have one kid, and it'd be like a crazy situation. And we just look at each other and go, where are we going to put the third?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where does he go?
Yep. I kept on telling my wife for a long time, 2 hands, 2 babies. She didn't find that funny.
We break bigs and littles. So it's like our catchphrase. We'll go, you've got the bigs? Okay, I'll take the littles. And so like Ellie just bounces between either group. And so there's certain things where you're like, it's better for one person to take the 2 littles. Or in certain circumstances, it's better for one person to take the 2 bigs.
I like this plan. I think I'm going to steal it.
So it's just kind of like somebody's got to have 2. And luckily, Ellie is a good kind of pivot point, and she goes with one of the boys.
This is a good idea.
Yeah, and the key to anything in parenting: have plenty of snacks at all time, ready to bribe them. You can weather anything if you've got plenty of fruit snacks.
Love it.
Right?
This is great. This is great parenting advice for all ages of kids, for sure. 1 second, hold up.
So I'm literally going, the pillow's not going to do anything. What is he doing? And the second it drops,
it's the gap under the door.
Like, that is magical. As you picked up the pillow, I'm like, this isn't going to do a single thing. What is he doing? Boom. It's like, it literally, you could just,
Dampens.
It's like when you put on headphones. That's what it sounded like, but I was already wearing headphones.
Exactly. But enough about me and our family stuff. Eddie, we got a big episode to do here. We got 3 big time things to talk about, including a classic Christmas film. But first, the thing everybody's talking about, Bob Iger is back in, and Bob Paycheck Chapstick, whatever his name is out. You and many other people were texting me while I was at Wakanda Forever about this.
Oh, you were at Wakanda Forever.
I was watching my phone blow up with Christmas came early and lots of those kind of memes.
Yes. So for context, I know this is being released on Wednesday, but we are recording Monday evening of November 21st. So it's been out in the news for 24 hours. Yep. And I have a feeling by the time this episode actually releases, we're going to hear a lot more stories, because right now everything is just kind of some whispers and some rumbling and everything. But yeah, we were just kind of like, it was a long day on Sunday, so we're like, hey, let's lay in bed and let's just watch some like YouTube channels that we really like. And I follow this DSNY newscast, and it said like live stream premiering in 20 minutes. I'm like, why is he going on a live stream? And it was Bob Paycheck fired, Bob Iger coming back. And I'm like, no, this is like, because he had just released a video earlier that day, like talking about how Chapek was diminishing the Disney brand and all these different things. And it was really odd because this is a creator who usually stays very positive. It's one of the reasons why I like him, because he doesn't complain about this or that. And a lot of other Disney creators in the past 2 years have done nothing but complain and complain. And I'm like, no matter how bad it is, you guys get to go to Disney World every day. Like, it's kind of hard to hear you complain. So when it was obvious this was negative, it's like, is this real? And I immediately hop on Apple News, just kind of like see like what are the major news outlets saying, like, because if this was real, major news outlets are going to be dropping this. And yes, it was like Hollywood Reporter, Wall Street Journal, like boom, 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 boom. This is what had happened. That the board convinced Bob Iger to come back after only having been officially retired from Disney for 11 months, to come back. He had stepped down as CEO almost 2 years ago, but he had retired after kind of a unique position that he had had for a while. He'd only been retired 11 months, invited him back. The thing that I'm hearing, so I've been watching all of these like inside sources on Twitter and following all this stuff down. The way I hear it is the chairwoman of the board reached out to Bob Iger Friday night. He only took 12 hours to think about it and confirmed on Saturday. The board worked through the night on Saturday to come up with a plan. Sunday night, just like an hour before we all heard about it, they told Bob Chapek.
Wow.
And blindsided him. Blindsided him. Sorry.
There we go. You figured it out.
I figured it out. I got there eventually. And this is all happening while like half of Disney executives are at the AMAs, and the other half are at the farewell concert to Elton John, which Disney Plus is streaming live. Like, this is two huge Disney events going on. You know, they've got these exclusive rights to live stream Elton John's last concert in North America. And apparently several of them suspiciously just start disappearing from those events. And
can you imagine?
And while they're sitting there, employees start to get this email from Bob Iger saying, fellow employees, I'm so excited to be back as your CEO. That's how they find out. And the rejoicing, it just explodes. Like, every YouTuber posted a video about it. Every person on Twitter that's on like Disney Twitter is posting how excited they are. Like, no one was sad. And not even Bob Chapek could be sad, because the rumor is that they gave this guy $23 million
golden parachute
to walk away from his contract.
Man,
23. It was funny because Sarah and I were talking about it. And she's like, yeah, but don't you kind of feel bad for Bob Chapek?
Nope.
And then I said that. I was like, well, they got $23 million. She goes, okay, no, I'm not sad. I'm not sad for him.
Chapek has been the whipping boy, the whatever you want to call him for Disney ever since he took over.
And even ever since he took over parks and resorts. Because so Iger's last 5 years, Chapek was over parks, and he kind of slowly started whittling away at different things. And then when he took over as CEO, boom, it was just like the Disney difference, that experience was higher than, was lower than ever. And it was obvious that he just didn't understand the Walt Disney Company. Like, just was so deft to what the company really was that he was working with.
And it's so interesting because he's been there a really long time. He's a long-term employee. It's not like they brought him in like the last couple of years. He had been there and been running the place, running parks and other, I think he did direct to DVD and stuff like that.
Merchandising, he kind of stayed very much in one lane of consumer products for the longest time. But I mean, you go all the way back, and I think we even talked about it here, was the debacle with Scarlett Johansson and how they rolled out Black Widow. Like, I think that was the writing on the wall for everybody of going, oh, he doesn't know what business he's in.
You don't take off name stars that everybody loves. It's just something about that. You'd think it would be common sense, but he didn't quite get that.
Well, there was also this great quote from him, great quote in quotes. He said, this was only 2 weeks ago. He was being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, and I think he was trying to be positive about this. He was trying to say something nice about cast members, but he starts off by going, nobody goes to a Disney park for the castle or for the churro on Main Street or for the amazing rides. What people really love about their Disney experience is their interactions with our cast members. And it was like,
no,
yes, like cast members, you're not going to have it without that. Like, you've got some of the best people working there, and like they're definitely the friend. It's just that Disney difference that they bring. But it's the whole package. Like, you go to Disney because you want that Disney experience, which is all of those things. Like, you need all of those things together to formulate that. And so it's like, man, you don't really understand why people go to the parks. You don't understand what draws people to your movies.
Was this before or after he said adults don't watch Disney movies?
It was after. Yeah. So, in
just
the past 6 weeks, he's had the whole adults don't really watch animated films, to which, somebody's probably at The Simpsons going, really? You don't think adults watch animation? You just spent 70 something billion dollars to acquire us. Yeah, I think adults watch animation.
Can you walk us through the timeline of, because there's multiple times that Iger was supposed to step down. They kind of delayed it. He did step down. Then the pandemic happened and he came back in another revolt. Can you kind of walk us through what that whole timeline was? Because this wasn't like he just clean left and now he's back. There was a lot of starts and stops with this.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be, as I watched even a few just kind of business analysts today, this is not the it's not the long-term solution here, right? And they only brought Iger back for 2 years. I think
only 2 years.
Only 2 years.
We'll see how many it ends up being.
No one expects that to be held to, because he's never held. The exact timing I can't remember, but there was at least 2 times previously that he was set to retire. and they pushed it back, and then they pushed it back. One of the most notable ones was about 2018. He was supposed to step aside. And then the whole Fox acquisition was kind of coming to a conclusion. And a part of that acquisition was, we'll only do this if you stay on for, I think it was like another 2 years.
Wow.
And a part of what happened there is, and there was one previously, let's say 2016, that was kind of a similar thing. The people that were in the company kind of growing up in the ranks that were being prepared to take over as CEO grew impatient. It's like, is dad ever going to leave and hand the store over to me? So in many ways, we can whine and complain about Chapek as much as we want. He's Iger's creation. Or we can sit here and celebrate Iger's return as much as we want. The problems of the past few years were just as much Iger's creation by complacency or volition. It doesn't matter. So the people who would have been much better to take over, that I don't think any of these crazy situations would have happened under, all moved on because they thought, Iger's never going to let go, and I need to step out into another arena so I can have my chance elsewhere.
Yeah, it's hard to be incredibly celebrated in this moment. I think the more the celebration comes from, we get somebody that we know who did a great job, and it's not Chapek anymore. I think the thing that's being glossed over, the fact is, Chapek was his choice.
Right.
And it was a horrible choice, and it did not work out. And the reason he's having to come back at all is because the succession plan was a failure. As much as he's done amazing other things, this was a failure, and coming back is somewhat of an admission of that, even though it's being couched as, oh, I'm so excited to be back. And I don't think it took him long to agree to come back. I think it was
12 hours.
And
only took 12 hours. Usually, that's a huge decision. And part of the reason he's coming back is his own pride, right? His own ambition. He can't let the last thing that he did be such an epic failure that potentially would tank the company. He's got to come in and clean up his own record for that matter. But he is a creative. At his heart, I think Iger, at least more than Chapek, maybe not as much as Eisner, but Iger is very much a creative person that values creativity and the creative process. And I mean, that's what Disney is at its core. It's if it's no longer a creative company, it's no longer going to have a viable product to sell. And I think he'll cast a creative vision and get somebody in there who understands that more. That's what I'm excited about. Okay, it's no longer going to be pursuing the direction of just milking people for every dollar they've got, because that's really what it was. How can we get the maximum amount of dollar out of every person who loves this brand? Let's just use and abuse them, and use and abuse our employees, not pay them accordingly. Don't hire as many, don't staff as well, so that we can make more profit off of our employees. That's the whole park reservation system. You're putting the burden on the person who's coming to enjoy this to make your staffing decisions for you, of putting them in this park or that park, of, okay, there's not going to be as many people at California Adventure today, so we don't have to staff that.
So we're just off the heels of another round of price increases, like just dropped last week.
Just dropped
for Walt Disney World. Do you foresee them kind of curtailing some of those decisions and kind of pulling back some of that, maybe lowering the price? Because that's been the big buzz of, like, it's hard for middle-class families to go have a Disney experience anymore.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, when we saw those price jumps, it was like, whoa, if once all 3 kids hit, a ticket where we got to get a ticket for all 3 kids, we're looking at a trip that we can only pull off 1 or 2 parks at best when we go to Disney World. Which is fine. Like, we've talked about that a lot, where our favorite thing about Disney is more the resorts and hanging out and kind of enjoying all of that. I don't think they will roll back those price increases. That would be the most surprising thing he could do. I think he could do anything else, and I wouldn't be as surprised as that. To see Disney lower prices,
or maybe just take back the ones they just did and kind of throw that on. Oh, that was Chapek. Like, we're taking another look at this. Let's keep everything the same, because they're not supposed to roll out till December 5th. So he's got time to kind of say, hey, we're going to pause this.
I don't think he'll pause that. Okay. What I think he will do is increase the value of the product that you receive for that price. And there's easy things that you could do. Get rid of the reservation system right away. Like, the people are clamoring for that. Like, just get rid of this extra step that makes going to the park. My parents were there in February. My beautiful, wonderful, fun parents are like, oh, we've got like a camper rally near Disney. Let's camp at Fort Wilderness for 3 nights, and we'll go to like the Magic Kingdom for a day. And they walk in, they've bought a ticket, and they're like, oh yeah, you have a ticket, but you don't have a reservation. And like, this happens every day. Families who come from the other side of the country, I think that the reservation system is an easy win for him. Get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Go back to the old way of doing it. I also think you can add back perks. The Genie Plus Lightning Lane thing, I don't know if he'll get rid of that completely, but I think there's some tweaks that he could do to that to make it a more, to bring value back to the product. I think you start paying your cast members a better wage, and you're going to get a much better overall experience for everybody, because people are going to be happy to work there for you again. Like, when you laid off everybody and then you brought them back at the same wage, even though wages had, everybody else in the industry had raised that and you didn't, of course you're going to get stuck with the people who aren't super excited to be there. So I think there's these types of things. Bring back the perks of, like, at Disney World, you would get a free ride from the airport to a resort. He took that away. It was like these little things. Like, if you stayed at a Disney resort, you got all of these added perks. Extra magic hours, you got a free magic band, you got a ride from the airport, like and he took all of that away. All of it. Chapek did. So that was one of the things where people are going, you're raising the prices on food, lodging, and now you're raising the price on the parks, but all you're doing is taking things away. You're just taking things away. So why am I paying more for less? So I think that's what Iger should focus on. Is I would be shocked if the prices decrease. It could happen. That would be like monumental. But I think what's more likely is to see certain perks or new perks come back, fix some of these things that are, fundamentally wrong with the consumer experience. But that's just one man's opinion.
Well, we will keep everybody abreast of the situation. See as more things drop. I'm sure by next week we're going to have other little nuggets and stuff kind of come out. Maybe more story behind the situation. I've heard a couple things that one of the reasons that he was so amped to take the job back is because he had been kind of looking around at other things to do.
They weren't panning out.
And yeah, so it's no shocker that he was potentially like dabbling with a presidential run in there, public office. He was looking at some sports teams to own when the whole fiasco with the Phoenix Suns came around a few months ago, with their owner now selling the team because of horrible things that he had said and done. that was a big hope, was that people are like, oh, I wonder if he will buy the team with another group of people. But because ESPN was the one that broke the story about the owner was like, I'm for sure not going to sell my team to a Bob Iger run conglomerate or whatever. That's some of the things that I just even was listening to a podcast with Bill Simmons today that he was talking about. So it's things like that fell through, which is why he was like, after 12 hours, he was like, yes, I will go run my dream job again. Let me do that again, because nothing else panned out. The grass wasn't as green as he thought it was going to be.
And a couple of reports have said he has taken a much lower compensation for this new round, whatever that means. But that, let's just say he's not making $23 million probably.
There's not quite as many rhinestones on this golden parachute like Paycheck does. But we'll keep talking about it as things come up, and we will be giving you our hot takes right here. And we got some more hot takes to go, as we just had 2 weekends ago. Sorry, it's been a little delayed in us getting to this, but 2 weekends ago, Wakanda Forever dropped. I've been waiting for the sequel to the initial Black Panther movie. And I just saw this last night, just got it in time. So it's fresh on my memory. But Eddie, what was your anticipation for this film? Was it really high? I know those trailers were special. The initial trailer was amazing.
Yeah, we were able to sneak out and have a little date night and go see this Friday. And yeah, I had been really excited. I think I was a little apprehensive because, I mean, you knew it wasn't going to be a true sequel because of the loss of Chadwick Boseman. And so there's a little bit of this, I'm excited for a new Black Panther, but it's also bittersweet and sad because you're like, oh man, to not have your lead actor to be able to return to such, I think you could say historic, groundbreaking character in film. The way they handled his death, both his death and then the character's death, just straight from the beginning, I got to say, I thought it was very touching, just the Marvel opening title card being all Chadwick Boseman. I thought that was really sweet. I thought that was a really great way to honor him.
They did the same thing. They did the same thing for Stan Lee
when he passed. Yeah. So yeah, I was, how is this going to go? What is this? Then when I started hearing the things about Namor being in this and the Mesoamerican background, the Mayan background, I started getting really excited. Because JB knows when we were like seniors in high school, I hit this weird Mayan phase. I know all of you listening have had your weird Mayan phase. But I had gone on, I think it was like even maybe our senior trip was the first time, and visited Mayan ruins, taken a tour, bought a couple like books and stuff. And I became just very fascinated with this period in history. I think even one of my final speeches in senior speech class was on the Mayan culture, if memory serves me correctly there. So yeah, I was really excited to see how that character would come all out and together and everything. And I enjoyed this movie. I don't think I enjoyed it to the same level as I did the original, but that would be really hard to do. I don't think I was expecting to enjoy it as much as I did the original. But I would say overall, it was a very entertaining film. It was fun.
The initial one, the first Black Panther film, had a cultural just shockwave.
Yeah.
That happened, even everything from obviously Chadwick Boseman, but also like the whole, the symbol, the arms crossed, like you could see people doing that kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. It had a massive amount of buzz for that film when it first came out, and rightfully so. this one, it definitely, it's not like it snuck up. Like we knew it was coming, but it was interesting the past 10 days or so, I was waiting for more reaction to the film. And yes, it did really good in the box office. I think it set records for a November release.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's up to 500 million now.
Wow, that's crazy. So obviously people are going to see this, but this film is not hit. Not that it was ever going to do the same thing, but it just, the conversation has not been anywhere near what the initial one had. I think it was interesting. I was waiting for people like to come back and come into the office talking about it. I don't know if everyone just kind of waited to go see it or what, like I did. We had I was going to see it the previous weekend, but our heater went out, so I couldn't go do that. So I thought that was interesting that there wasn't. But then when I saw the film, this was a film that it kind of had to go through this process. This wasn't just, here's the next Black Panther film. The entire film is dealing with that grief of losing not only Chadwick Boseman, but also T'Challa, King T'Challa. Like the entire thing is about everybody's
grief.
Different ways of dealing with grief. And there was never, it almost not, it was set up to fail, but it was set up to not be a normal Marvel film. If that makes sense. Like it couldn't just be here's just a great story. It's like, we all have to, like, everybody's going to deal with this together. And it literally takes Shuri the entire film to kind of deal with it from her own perspective on it. And in different ways. And like, there's so much loss in this film. Just so many different characters that come out of here. And then you've got, I think it's weird for them to have to be dealing with this and then also have to bring on like, okay, here's a brand new villain that's got to come in and kind of take over and really almost threaten your very existence. I think that's what kind of left me feeling like I enjoyed this film, but I didn't love this film.
Well, let's think about it another way. Like if I say Captain America Winter Soldier, boom, you think the highway sequence, right? When I say even like the original Black Panther, you think like that first time you fly into Wakanda and you see it.
Or the waterfall. The
waterfall sequence.
The fights on that, yep.
You know, when I say, and any of the big, of these Marvel movies, they have that moment, that stirring moment where you're just like, whoa, I have to see this in the theater for that moment. And this never had that. You never arrived at a moment. I thought we might arrived at that moment when you go to the underwater city.
It was hard to see anything.
It was hard to see. Thank you. Like that was, I'm going, this is really odd that this is the way that they're visually, like, it's very realistic. Like, sure, this is what a city's going to look like at the depths of the ocean.
The underwater city in episode 1 of Star Wars is way more inviting, capturing your attention. That like Jar Jar City was way more interesting than this. It's almost like they leaned too much on a realism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's like when you first get introduced to Wakanda in the first one, you see this incredible blend of traditional and modern Africa.
Yep.
That's like, wow, that's really cool. That's really intriguing. So I was waiting for some style or version of that. And it's like, oh no, they're like passing bubbles around to each other or whatever. It's like, I don't want to go live there. Yeah. And I you hate to say it because under the circumstances and everything, but it is really hard to have a whole movie, an epic like this, all about grief. Right? Because that's even Neymar's whole character arc is the grief, that
everybody's arc in this is all the same. Is all
grief,
the same thing. Yep.
Is grief. And you're like, oh, you kind of get to the end of it. And I think there, just to give a big spoiler warning here. The after credits sequence was kind of one of the first moments where you got a little glimmer of hope when you meet T'Challa's son, and you're like, oh, and you see that little boy is like smile and was like so vibrant, so beautiful. And you're like, oh, okay, we got a little bit of a happy ending. Mm-hmm. Like it took us over 2 hours to get there, but okay, there's a little something. But until that moment, it's just like grief.
I wasn't blown away by Namor. I think his best moments was when he was like jetting from place to place and taking ships down. We're like, man, I have no idea how to stop this guy. How are you going to do anything that you were hoping to do? But overall, I wasn't like super impressed by his bad guy. Like that's always my big go-to. Like, okay, how good is the film? It's like, how good is your bad guy in this? And I think maybe because I spent so much time making him feel real and his like I personally enjoy when there's like some sort of like, oh, I can see why someone would do this. I still kind of like to have it a little bit more sinister. And this guy felt like, oh, he's just kind of just revenging his mom here to some degree. It's not like I didn't really care for. I just didn't care for him that much. Like I wasn't like blown away, like feeling like, oh, we have to beat this guy. Like us together, we gotta take him over. And also, the ending fight scene on the ship, kind of blah, kind of like there wasn't that much to it. They're just attacking the ship, and there's a ton of people. Like they should win this thing, but they didn't somehow in the end, just because their leader kind of got taken out. It was
like your whole strategy is based off of like this sonic device at the bottom of the boat, and all of it took was one person to swim up and put a bomb in it. It's like,
and then it was done.
You didn't see that coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, that's how it's going to go down. I mean, that being said, I felt like there was some really great performances in this. I can't remember the actress's name, but the young woman who plays Shuri, fantastic.
Letitia Wright, yep.
Fantastic performance.
Angela Bassett.
I've heard
carried half this film,
if not more. Yeah, like I've heard people go, should she get an Oscar nomination for this thing? Like, it is so like she is an incredible actress. But this was just like, man, yeah, she acted her socks off on this one.
Yeah, I was so impressed by Angela Bassett as Ramonda. In this film, she was such a force of nature for the half of this film. Spoiler alert, that she's in. And I even felt like Letitia Wright did pretty well as well, kind of with her own journey in there.
Did you think she would be the one to take the Black Panther mantle?
I figured it would be her, mostly because Nakia isn't central enough.
Yeah.
Like she's not a central enough character to that family, to that world. She's always been the outsider that kind of like is on the fringes, and you feel that again. And when it's like halfway through the film and we haven't seen her yet, that's when I knew. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be Letitia. It's gonna be Shuri. Shuri's for sure gonna be. And she's also got someone coming up to take her place as the tech person with Riri, this college student taking over. Like you kind of just, okay, I can see, yes, got a little bit of a glimpse of her in there. You just kind of get a sense of, okay, obviously they're setting this up for Shuri to take over. And she did a good job in the suit and everything like that. But I think it's just the fact that it didn't have any iconic, like even right now, I'm trying to think of any iconic moments from this. Maybe I guess they thought the whales, like riding with the whales might be it. I didn't get any of that. Like even in the first one, there were so many like technical cool things that they did with like putting the thing on cars and the spear. They kind of did the spear thing again.
They did the car thing again.
Yeah, I didn't. There was nothing new or different because it was mostly just preoccupied with this internal conflict that everybody was dealing with. So yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
You want to know what my favorite thing about this movie was?
What?
I mean, the standout thing that's like my favorite part of Wakanda Forever is that we had nothing to do with the multiverse.
Isn't it always a breath of fresh air, especially thinking of Ant-Man coming up and it's going to be all.
Thank you. It was just one linear story. It was one linear story, one world. Here we go. None of this like bouncing around. Where am I? Who is this? What is there? Like the whole multiverse thing. I mean, it was clever like the first few times, but now it's just too much. And this is what all of the next movies are going to all be. So we got to get ready for that.
When's Ant-Man? Because I know that's going to be on steroids. I want to say it's February. Yep, February 17th. Pretty close to my birthday.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. And February release. Yeah, because our next big Marvel release, I think, is this week with the holiday special for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what's the next big one? Oh, I gotcha.
Which Kevin Feige came out and said was the very first Disney Plus Marvel content that he pitched.
What's the Guardians of the Galaxy
holiday special?
Oh, my gosh.
Have you seen the trailer for this thing?
Oh, I have.
Where they kidnap Kevin Bacon.
Kidnap Kevin Bacon. I feel like we missed that when we were just talking about all of the random content that came out a few weeks ago.
There's so much.
We got that, and then we've got some other non-Disney. Well, not actually. No, it's not. It is Disney. Avatar 2. That's the next big thing coming out.
And this is going to make them a ton of money. Like, I mean, you've got Black Panther warming up the box office with $500 million. Strange World, I think will do pretty good. We'll see. And then Avatar Way of Water, they made what, like over $200 million, in the re-release a couple of months ago. Everybody who was doubting that this had lost its time, it wasn't going to do well, I think is totally off base. I think this is going to do really, really well. We're going opening night.
to Avatar?
Yeah, so my parents have hey, we're going to give you an overnight date night. We're able to get a hotel and we're going to stay, get a kind of a night away from the kids. And we planned it around being able to go see this movie on its opening.
December 16th. Yep.
I loved the original. I saw it multiple times there. I saw it just recently in the re-release. The Pandora World of Avatar at Animal Kingdom is one of my favorite lands Disney Parks has ever done. And that, yeah. So I'm very excited for this. And I think this is going to be the thing where we go, oh, Disney's going to be really happy that they're making some money here. So they can pay Bob Iger to build new things in the parks.
Mm-hmm. And The Mandalorian season 3 comes out same time in February next year. February's going to be a good month.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to be thankful for in February.
I think next week we need to have a big Disney Plus catch-up day.
Well, we have to spend a whole segment, a whole part of the episode just on Andor.
Just on Andor.
As you are listening to this episode, it will be live. The last episode for the next 2 years.
We have to wait 2 years.
They are just now starting. They're just now in production right now on the next season, and it's not going to be out till.
That's painful.
Yep.
Andor. We've got Disenchanted. Just came out this weekend. We tried to start it with the kids, and then we were like, "Oh yeah, this is too hard to keep the kids, focused on this movie." But I'm really excited about that. I'm a big fan of the original Enchanted, but I haven't been able to watch it yet. the holiday special. We did just watch, there was a documentary about Mickey Mouse that came out.
Yep.
Had you seen this? Have you watched it?
We watched half of it. I don't know. Well, if I remember how.
It was really good. And I thought even just like the ending and how they've like worked to like recreate it, it's very interesting. Iger shows up in that documentary, not Chapek, but Iger. And it came out before all of this drama. It's like, this is interesting. So yeah, there's lots of little things out there on Disney Plus right now. So I think next week we need to do a bit of a what's new on Disney Plus episode.
I think we will. I think we have to.
As you like to say, it's our podcast.
It's our podcast. We can do what we want. And so far, we've done what we want for 45 minutes, talking about everything but what people really came here for. Which, really. Eddie, this is a great one to do right now, because we ended up putting up our Christmas tree early this year because we're going to be out for Thanksgiving.
As did we, because we live in a culture that starts celebrating Christmas in October.
Yep. So we are, we've already got the Christmas spirit going. So this is great. This is perfect time. I think this happened the first year, the first year of our podcast. We had Muppet Christmas Carol, like, came out immediately right during Christmas time. It was like perfect. This is another one. This is great.
I think that episode released like Christmas, the week of Christmas. Yeah, that timed out really well.
It might have. And then the following week was Soul, and it crushed our souls to talk about Soul.
But you loved Muppet Christmas Carol. Muppet Christmas Carol was one of the best movies you've ever seen,
ever seen. I'm just saying it was perfectly timed for the content and topic, not that I actually liked it. We'll see about today. Because today we are talking about the sequel, which is The Santa Claus 2.
Cue the Disney sound effect.
Okay, IMDb description for The Santa Claus 2. If you haven't seen this yet, you should have already seen this, but we're going to do it anyways. Okay, Scott Calvin has been a humble Santa Claus for 8 years, but it might come to an end if he doesn't find a Mrs. Claus. Humble Santa Claus? I don't know that humble is ever a word that was said about Tim Allen or any character that he's played, like humble, lowly.
Yeah, no. Always a little cocky.
Yeah, there's a lot of other words used for this.
Sure.
Eddie, tell me about your memories growing up watching this movie.
I mean, we were a big fan of the original. In fact, like, that was one of the first Christmas movies we watched this year. So I think when the sequel came out, it was like really exciting. Little bit of, more of what you've all come to enjoy. But I never remembered this like rising to the same level as the original, like hitting that kind of classic feel or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, it was a solid watch in our house, when it came out.
This was, I don't know if I ended up seeing this in theaters, because it's 2002.
2002. Right? So you don't get your first until 2005, I thought.
No, it was 2000. It was 2002 because we saw episode 2 of Star Wars, the clone. That was our first film. So I think I might have actually seen this in theaters.
Whoa!
We've now crossed over into that part of my childhood.
Crossed the threshold.
Yeah, so this was one of my first movies, and it was first Christmas movie probably that I had seen in theaters, and just had fond memories. The thing I always remember is Charlie rappelling through the ceiling, and he's on the naughty list. But like every teenager, he can't say why he's why he's being so naughty. But we get Juliet from Lost, major part of this. She is also in the Santa Clauses that's now just released on Disney Plus now. So we'll probably have to talk about that next week as well. Maybe might have to watch a couple of the episodes just to get a taste for it. Bringing that back. See, Disney doesn't hate Tim Allen as much as we thought he did. Just Pixar. And this is exactly what you expect from a Tim Allen film, Tim Allen Christmas film from the early 2000s. Like this is him in his bag.
Lots of one-liners, not so veiled sarcasm. But then these like beautiful, heartwarming, moments. I mean, it's not pure Michigan heartwarming moments, but it gets close.
Pure Michigan.
The Pure Michigan ads?
Oh,
that he voices.
I've heard about these.
Heard about these? We grew up in Indiana, hearing them all the time.
I don't remember actually experiencing them myself.
Oh my goodness, they would come over the radio, and it's like, I'm live in Indiana. I'm good. Like, I'm not like that much in love with Michigan here. I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with it. But then you listen to Tim Allen talk about it, and he talks about it like such a heartwarming way. You're like, okay, I'll go visit Michigan. I want to.
My favorite quote from him in this movie was, "I've got sides. I got many sides. I'm a Rubik's Cube with pants on." That was my favorite one-liner that he had in here.
It is an interesting, like, I enjoyed the whole, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy thing, kind of like at the beginning. It was borderline campy.
Yes.
And even, in the rewatch, you're kind of going, I don't know if this totally works. Like, because I think that's one of the things that's so good about the original is it feels very authentic and like, oh, like this could really happen. It feels like a real world and place and everything.
If Santa was real, this would definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Whenever I experience something like this, it usually feels like this.
And then so for this to kind of start with that,
you're right.
It's like, it just kind of pulled it down a little bit. It's like, this is a little too campy. Then you pull out the toy replicated Santa bossing everybody around and like becoming, this, militant guerrilla of Santa or whatever. It's like, this just feels weird. Like and it's not even so much like, I don't mind the storyline of like having to find Mrs. Claus and everything. That's really sweet. That's got some really great moments. But everything with the toy Santa just is kind of weird and creepy to me.
Oh, he was weird and creepy, but I actually kind of liked it because it wasn't like he comes out of the thing and he's immediately evil and ready to take over. He has his own little arc in there of like being brought to life, not knowing anything, learning about Coco, learning how to look through a manual. And then all of a sudden he's like, but this is wrong. But why didn't we do this? Oh, wait a minute. I'm the guy in the chair. I can make all the calls. And then it's just that slow progression to where he gets to literally militant with his outfit and everything like that. And bringing all of the, I got a very much a Babes in Toyland feel from all the giant toy soldiers. I actually kind of liked it. I thought it wasn't, they could have done this way more stereotypical than that they did. And it's because it's Tim Allen in the suit, like doing Tim Allen things to make it a little bit different. And the way he like even drinks the coffee, drinks the hot cocoa is different than how a lot of other people would have done it. So I kind of liked it. I wasn't mad about it. It's weird. It's different. And I guess you could say it's probably a departure from what the original was. That wasn't that hokey, but that's kind of the par for the course with sequels anyways. It's like, how can we get the FBI involved in this?
We're not going to get to it in our walkthrough, so I'm going to jump forward here a little bit. In 2008, they released Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause with Martin Short.
Yep.
Have you seen that?
I saw it when it came out or sometime around there. I remember nothing other than Martin Short is Jack Frost. So they kind of continue on with all the seasonal characters.
I would say like where this movie just kind of barely stayed tolerable with some of that kind of oddity and campiness, that trajectory scaled up higher.
Exponentially worse.
Exponentially. So by the time we get to the third one, it's this is a little too much. I don't know if I can handle this, but
the other storyline that I was more impressed by than I thought, not impressed by, but more felt better about than I was expecting to, was the conflict between the principal and him when it comes to the fact that they've actually come together and they're falling in love. And then he says, or they're really starting to get along really well. And then he plays the Santa card. It felt really earned when she's like, don't do this to me. I told you a very personal thing, and you are, and it's because she's a great actor. She's really good at what she does.
No, I'm really glad that you brought up that scene. I think you're totally right. Like,
because you feel it coming. You're like, no, man, this is going to break her heart. She's going to think you're taking advantage of her right now.
Yeah. That's a powerful scene. And it feels kind of weird because it's in the midst of everything else going on. But it's a very tender, like very emotional sequence that you feel for her in that. And you're like, yeah, I can resonate that when you feel like somebody is misusing something very personal that you opened up to them about. And the way that she presents that scene is, I'm a fan of Elizabeth Mitchell. Everything that I've seen her in is always, she's one of my favorite characters in that, particularly Lost with Juliet. But that sequence in particular here, you really felt it.
Of course, we get some of the older characters back. We get Bernard, who's back in the fold. I forget the other guy. Yeah.
Bernard has my favorite line of the movie. This guy is not Santa. He's a toy. He has a rubber face and a plastic tushy.
I might have written that one down too.
Best line of the movie right there. Goes to Bernard.
That whole takeover scene, the first thing that came to my mind was, is this what it was like at Twitter when Elon Musk took it over? Is this what is happening live right now on the behind the scenes in the Twitter 2.0 takeover? That's all I could think about.
You can see those pictures. There's people who are still working there, like tweeting it out. And like you see all these meetings with him working through stuff with the engineers at Twitter, and they're all loving it. The people who stuck it out are like smiling, enjoying themselves.
They've got plastic faces like, this is amazing. We're here. So
I'm more optimistic about all that than anybody else.
It's just, that's a whole nother conversation of just like what in the world is happening and everything. The Twitter blue is like a complete wow. I just can't believe what's happening. Anyway, sorry. Back on what we're really talking about. Hard right turn. So the reindeer, why did they make them sound like Jar Jar Binks?
And I think this is that other element of this feeling more and more campy, right?
That was like too far.
In the first one, they do a lot of like grunts and a little bit of like some sounds that could sound like vocalizations. And the animatronic or whatever that they used is okay. In the first one, it's believable. This one, it feels so unreal. It's I don't even know. It's like a cross between like a cheap mall animatronic and claymation. And then you get the Jar Jar Binks sounds coming out of them.
It's not a major part
Rudolph,
of the film. Yeah.
Who's the small Comet? The small reindeer.
Oh, we got Chet. Chet is the reindeer in training. Who almost runs them over in the front, which was some really horrible CGI.
So stupid. Horrible CGI, like just the execution of all of that. It's just so cheesy. Just so stupid. Like, it doesn't feel endearing. Like, it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy nostalgia like the first one gave you. It feels very much, I don't know. I'm running out of adjectives to describe this.
It's weird. Luckily, it's not a major part of this film. Like, you don't get a ton of reindeer like FaceTime, screen time,
Sure.
which is good. But anytime they're on screen doing their Jar Jar voice, I was just like, why, guys? We could have done a lot better than this. Shout out to Molly Shannon for her just like blind date of From Hell, doing her Shania Twain Feel Like a Woman impersonation. And then when he's like, actually, it kind of scared me a little bit. And she's like, it was really hard for me to do. And like, just like, and I love that they didn't do the typical, like, let's have him go on like 7 dates and you get a bad taste of each one of them. It's like, let's just have him go with Molly Shannon and it's the date from hell.
Get a really bad one.
Just get one really bad one.
I love Molly Shannon, and I particularly love these scenes that she does. Because this, I mean, she's done this in a couple other things where she just kind of shows up for this over-the-top extreme moment in the whole sequence. And there's nobody who can just nail it, just stick the landing like Molly Shannon. When she goes into Shania Twain, for me, this is probably the funniest moment in the whole movie.
Just Eddie crying on the floor, watching the scene on repeat.
I like Molly Shannon. Her superstar character in SNL is one of my favorites.
So the stepdad, who's also a psychiatrist, I forget his character's name in here.
Neil.
Oh, what a perfect psychiatrist name. When
they took the sweater, his sweaters to another level. In
sweaters
this
was so good, and then he loans him a sweater to wear on the date with his minivan. It's great. But when he said, "Don't let the facts that you have no time, no prospects, and a crippling fear of intimacy keep your spirits down," that was great. I love that we got just one of those zingers in there, and then they really had no screen time in this. They had just a couple scenes like in the principal's office and then at home.
I'll be interested to see how much they pop up in the Disney Plus series, Santa Clauses.
What do we think of Charlie? He's older in this. Did his acting prowess grow at all in this? Did we like him? Like, how did we feel about Charlie?
It was about the same. I mean, I'm not... Anytime you've got the storyline where it's the moody teenager
that can't communicate, which
communicate.
We don't have teenagers yet, Eddie. So I'm sure when we're there, we will go.
We definitely will hate it.
We'll be like, this is 100%.
Yeah.
Identify with it.
But anytime that comes up, it's so hard. It's so painful. I think that's why, like, even though it's one of my favorite storylines, it's one of the hardest books to read in the whole Harry Potter series, is Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, man. I was so...
Because you are so annoyed with Harry by the end of it.
Annoyed with Harry, hating Umbridge, like the fact that nobody will listen to him, but then you're also like kind of mad at Harry while this is going on.
So yeah, this is kind of with Charlie, the angsty teenager, moody stuff. It's like, I understand its role in the story, and he does a really good job with that and propels the story along with it. But you're just like, I don't want any more of this.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he took that many acting lessons from the time he was really young in the first one and to this one. He was not the highlight of this movie for me.
It was an improvement from the kid who played Anakin in the first Star Wars movie. But that's a pretty low bar. You're not having to work too hard to get past that one. Well, I feel like we have arrived at the moment to give our ratings.
Mm-hmm.
JB, what are you going to give the Santa Claus 2?
This was a very traditional Tim Allen Christmas special, something you're going to turn on, one of the many options you're going to turn on when you inevitably around this time next year, or even this year, if you haven't already turned it on. Just one of those movies you're going to watch. I'm still going to watch the first one a lot sooner than I am this one. I think I should have looked up what I gave the first one.
You gave it a 2. I looked it up.
Ooh, I gave it a 2.
You are a bit of a Scrooge, my friend. You have not given any of the Christmas movies we've reviewed higher than a 2.
I was going to be more generous with this film, but now thinking about the original, man.
I was wondering if you were going to be more generous. And before I was ready with that fact, I looked it up because I was like, I'm going to jump on him if he gives this higher than a 2.
I don't know what to do with myself now, because I should give the original more than a 2. I should go back and slap my former self and say, JB, what were you thinking?
I gave it a 3.5, the original.
Yeah, I really did give it a 2. I need to go back and listen. And if you haven't, you can go back to our episode.
We've got it on our website.
Like a year and a half ago when we covered that film. Man, that makes it really hard to rank this then, because I was going to nudge it a little bit. I mean, I can't give it more than a 2, so I'm just going to keep on giving it a 2.
You're going to say it's on the same level as the last one.
I'm saying that if I can give, I would watch this before I would rewatch Tuck Everlasting. And I gave Tuck Everlasting. I feel like I was too generous with Tuck Everlasting.
Yeah,
I should have made that a 1.5. So I'm going to give it a 2. I'm just going to give all Christmas movies a 2 because they're not world beaters. They're not there, and there is a time to watch them again. Now, granted, Home Alone is not on our list, or else that would have been a 5.
Okay, I was going to say, you just said I'm going to give all Christmas movies a 2.
All Christmas movies that are mostly on our list. I don't know. We don't have that many left.
No, we don't have many left on the list.
If any. Do we have any Christmas movies left?
Because I was going to say,
no, I don't
Home
think
Alone. We could... Now that
Chronicles of Narnia, is that a Christmas movie?
No, it is not a Christmas movie.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? It takes place in Christmas time.
No, it doesn't. It takes place in winter.
Same thing.
No, it's not. The Family Stone is a Christmas movie.
And you know I love that film. You know I love that film.
That's more than a 2. That's more than a 2.
Way more than a 2.
That's a 5. That's a rewatcher. I'm going to give the Santa Claus 2 a 2.5.
Okay.
I'm giving it a
little bit outside.
I gave the original 3.5. I think it is a 1 point step down. Still good rewatch. Not every Christmas like the original, but every other.
You're saying you're not necessarily watching this every Christmas?
Right. It's like, The third Santa Claus, I can't tell you the last time I've seen that. So that's
on purpose. When it wasn't just like someone turned this on. Who turned this thing on?
Mom, why did you? Yeah. So I'm intrigued to see the Santa Clauses, hopefully in next week's episode when we do our review of everything new on Disney Plus, we can touch that really quick.
We need to come out with a list of just to make sure that I've actually watched or at least glanced or watched a trailer of most of the things that we're going to talk about next week.
Right. So look forward to that next week. But 2.5, JB stays the Scrooge and gives all Christmas movies a 2. You heard it here. He hates Christmas.
All Christmas movies are 2s.
He hates Christmas movies.
I don't hate them. They're just 2s.
Yeah. So with that, your life has been forever changed by another episode of Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your other favorite podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a 5-star review or share it with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com. We referenced our movie list earlier in the episode. Continue as we walk through all the movies of our childhood of 1988 to 2005. We're going to take a break from that next week as we look at everything new on Disney Plus, but the week after we'll get right back to that.
Including Andor. Going to get our full thoughts on Andor. But thank you for listening, and remember, everyone just wants something to believe in.